honestly don't know how this is major news. Well, only partly, because this has been in the process for quite a long time, since either November or December. I remember I remember that specific date because that's when Donald Trump formally announced that he was planning on withdrawing troops away from Syria, considering that the Islamic State has finally been defeated. And I also remember that specific point, but because that's when General Mattis, at the time, who he was Secretary of Defense, had a falling out with President Donald Trump as a result of said policy, and decided to resign from his post. So, so that's actually what's led to this current point where Donald Trump is finally withdraw troops from the country, and now a lot of people in the United States are angry. And now I will get into that, but what is the result of and I will also get into my personal feelings as well over this. But what is the result of what is going on? Well, as we already know, U.S. troop withdrawal means that there isn't really an official military presence. Now, I say official because we could still have special operations forces within the country. They could be Black Ops, they could be Central Intelligence. They could be anything. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we had some extent of special forces troops still operating within the country in order to try to support the Syrian opposition as well as the Kurds, and to try to deter the rise of Islamic extremist groups within the country itself. Because for over 8 years already? Wow, it's that long. 8 years. Syria has been a major shithole, and it's been torn apart by civil war. I don't know how the country itself is still standing. I really don't. I'm surprised that the country is not divided up or partitioned into separate countries as a result. That's how much I'm surprised that this is still occurring. But regardless, the fact that Donald Trump decided to withdraw troops from Syria means that there is only a tiny bit potential of a vacuum within Syria. Now, I say a little bit of potential because because of the Republic of Turkey is planning on sending troops within Syria in order to deal with their own issues as a result of the civil war. They have definitely a major issue with the Kurds as well as the PKK, and it's been like that for such a long time. They have their own separate war on terror, their own fight against the PKK, which is a Kurdish socialist party, as well as according to Turkish media, to be a terrorist organization. Although I cannot personally comment on that because I do not really know too much about the specific issue in of itself. I do know, however, that Turkey has been very concerned about the issue going on in Syria, and it would be in its best interest to send in their own troops to deal with possible terrorist attacks within their own borders. So honestly, that would make sense, and I think that the political vacuum that may result of this would be easily plugged as a result of Turkish troops coming in. Although a lot of people are questioning how Turkish troops would actually be used, because after all, there is this sectarian conflict between the Turks and the Kurds. So that's been raising many eyebrows as well as questions as a result. Regardless, it's not really going to have too much of an impact. Well, it sort of is, because this is the United States we're talking about. But considering that we didn't have that much military presence aside from a few thousand troops that were supposed to take Al-Raqqa as well as other ISIS-held territories within the country, I don't think it's gonna have a major impact for the moment. It's not like in Iraq or in Afghanistan where we have thousands upon thousands of troops that were fighting within the country, and we suddenly decided to go out. Kind of like how Barack Obama did with Iraq, which was a big fuck up, in my personal opinion. I think that if we were going to withdraw from Iraq, it would have been through stages, not immediate. I think it was completely ridiculous, especially with the timetable given. But still, I personally support this move. Because this not only brings the troops home, but also prevents us from dealing with a bigger conflict at large, which is the Syrian conflict. We already have to deal with Afghanistan, and I personally have my own opinions about that war in of itself, and of course with dealing with other terrorist organizations around the world and other events. So we're not going to be dealing too much with Syria. To an extent, we will be with special forces, but in terms of actually having boots on the ground, I don't think so. I don't think that's going to be happening unless there is going to be a major reason for that to occur. Like, say the Islamic State decides to somehow rises again as a result, and then we send in our troops to try to take them down again, and then we come out. That's it. Another reason why I support this is because we already achieved the objective. Our objective was to take Al-Raqqa and to defeat ISIS. We did that. We managed to push ISIS out of Iraq. We managed to push ISIS out of Al-Raqqa with the help of Kurdish allies. We managed to take out other outposts, other territories held by the Islamic State, and they were defeated. Now, it's true that there's a possibility that there are some remnants, as well as some other Islamic extremist organizations that may still try to use this opportunity to grow, which is why, again, like I said before, special forces. So again, we accomplished that objective, and I'm a little bit surprised and disappointed by some of the reaction within the establishment. While I do get a little bit of their understanding, considering that how much they like the idea of America being involved in geopolitics, especially in the Middle East, I think that it would be completely irrational to do, because honestly, a lot of people are just not really supportive of the idea of going into another conflict. The majority of Americans aren't. If there's going to be a conflict, there needs to be a major reason behind it. Kind of like how 9/11 was when we went into Afghanistan, or how Pearl Harbor occurred, or how we declared war on Japan after the attack on Pearl Harbor, the Philippines, that sort of thing. So I don't see that happening anytime soon. Again, I'm disappointed by the reaction, though, because they went so far as to, in making McCain's case, to call people like this who support this feckless, unpatriotic cowards. I do not know how to respond to that. Just so much of that crap. I really do not. Here's the thing. You don't need to be in support of war to still be patriotic. In fact, some people might argue, and I would actually agree on that. Well, to an extent, it depends on the conflict, by the way. That actually not supporting the war is also being patriotic, because you're speaking out against it. I mean, after all, you're not actually trying to attack the troops or anything. You're just attacking the policy or just the conflict in general and just the involvement of the conflict. That I think is completely fine. And I don't. How is it that they decided to equal withdrawal from Syria after achieving the victory against ISIS to be unpatriotic, feckless cowards? That is literally the worst connection that I could ever find, because it kind of reminds me of a little bit of World War I, when there were a few people, and I believe Britain in this case, where people who were pacifists or did support the First World War were given white feathers as a symbol of their cowardice. That's what it kind of reminds me of. Now, here's the thing. Let's say that they decide to, the establishment or the people, whether you're Republican or Democrat, the neocons, the neolibs, whatever. Let's say they decide to have their own way in terms of having military personnel within Syria. What's the objective? I mean, we've already defeated ISIS. What's going to be what's the next step? As far as I know, there isn't one. All I would see would be just support the Syrian opposition, take down Assad. Hopefully, everything becomes good again. Because honestly, the Syrian opposition, it's considering that it's a ragtag group, or a ragtag association of multiple groups and different ideologies. That doesn't seem like it's a good cocktail to make, or a good cocktail to put into government, especially with kind of like how what happened with Egypt, how the Muslim Brotherhood was mainly the main opposition against Mubarak, even though that a lot of people preferred what was a democracy, but then decided to say screw it, way to go Islamic, before they themselves were ousted by Sisi. That's how I kind of would think that something like Syria would, or what something similar would happen like that in Syria, in my personal opinion. Now, it could be possible. It would be possible that you would still support the moderates, but then again, how can you tell specifically who's the moderate and who's the extremist, or who's the Democrat, or the authoritarian? It's kind of hard. And honestly, I think it's better if I think it would be a little better, in my opinion, for Syria to sort that out. Another important issue: if we decide to stick in there and we try to help rebuild or try to help the Syrian opposition, how are we going to help Syria? Like, how do we help them rebuild? How do we establish a democracy? We don't really have a plan or the specific layout, as far as I know, of how to deal with Syria in a more cultural and social sense. Because you definitely would need that. Need the idea of a cultural and social idea in how to deal with Syrians in order to get stuff the way you want them to. That was kind of like how we managed to deal with bringing democracy into Japan after the Second World War. What we did specifically was we kept Emperor Japan as the head of state, because he was the symbol of Japan. We did a few of the changes as a result, but still we kept the main unifying figure, the very personal symbol of Japan that symbolizes everything what it means to be Japanese. If we decided to take out Emperor Hirohito and try him for anything, that would have caused major mass problems, and that would have probably riled up the Japanese populace, probably splintering the entire country into multiple factions, whether you're communist or imperialistic, moderate, etc., etc., etc. That's the thing that I'm talking about here. I think that that with the current situation and with the lack of planning, the lack of know-how in order to deal with the situation in Syria, at least militarily, and in terms of dealing with the occupation, that would be more of a cost to us than withdrawing, in my personal opinion. It's not like we're leaving the Middle East. I think that would be an incredibly stupid idea in terms of geopolitics. But to have this mess in the form of the Syrian civil war in our hands would just make things not only worse for us, but would also cause some other issues for us down the road as we still continue to have presence in Syria, if we had presence in Syria. So that is why I personally support this withdrawal from Syria. I think it's a good idea. I think it makes sense. I think it's completed our objective, and definitely gives a message for people around the world that we will not tolerate terrorism, and we're just and we're done trying to get into wars. And this is the symbol, or this is the message that I believe is an important one to address. Although, considering that we also sent military forces in to deal with ISIS, I think that alone is also an important symbol of me that we are willing to fight against a whole lot of people who stand in the way to threaten the United States. And either way, I think this entire move, the entire campaign to defeat ISIS and the withdrawal, was a resounding success and is one that I approve. My name is Domi and all the Arc Truth. Please post your comments down below, like this video, subscribe, and share with your friends. Also, if you guys have any issues with how I speak or with how I frame my videos or whatnot, please be sure to post them down in the comment section below or directly message me up above. Thank you.
Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountain.